Children on construction sites. Outline 8 precautions that should be considered to prevent accidents to children who might be tempted to gain access to a construction site. One. Fencing to be maintained in a good condition of repair. Ensure this by periodic inspections of the perimeter fencing. 2. Warning signs of any dangers to be posted in conspicuous places. 3. No man traps should be set to catch children and/or other intruders. 4. Security patrols to operate regularly. 5. CCTV used where physical controls would prove difficult. 6. Isolating services when not in use, especially at times when the site may not be occupied, that is weekend. 7. Reducing heights of materials so that they do not become attractive climbing frame or pose less risk of becoming unstable. 8. Covering excavations to ensure that children and others cannot fall into the excavation. 9. Removing ladders, lashing the ladders, to deny access to scaffolding. 10. Securing tools, chemicals, equipment and vehicles under lock and key. 11. Community liaisons, either in close proximity schools, youth centers, etc. Contractor evaluation criteria. Identify the criteria when selecting a contractor. Fortunately, a contractor who works well and meets the client's requirements in terms of the quality and timeliness of the work is likely also to have a better than average health and safety performance. Cost, of course, will have to be part of the judgment, but may not provide any indication of which contractor is likely to give the best performance in health and safety terms. In deciding which contractor should be chosen for a task, the following should be considered. Do they have an adequate health and safety policy? Can they demonstrate that the person responsible for the work is competent? Can they demonstrate that competent safety advice will be available? Do they monitor the level of accidents at their work site? Do they have a system to assess the hazards of a job and implement appropriate control measures? Will they produce a method statement, which sets out how they will deal with all significant risks? Do they have guidance on health and safety arrangements and procedures to be followed? Do they have effective monitoring arrangements? Do they use trained and skilled staff who are qualified where appropriate? Judgment will be required, as many construction workers have had little or no training except training on the job. Can the company demonstrate that the employees or other workers used for the job have had the appropriate training and are properly experienced and, where appropriate, qualified? Can they produce good references indicating satisfactory performance? Contractor, reducing risks to them prior to and during project. Contractors are carrying out a major building project for your organization. Outline how your organization could reduce the risks to contractors both before and during the building project. selection of a competent contractor and ensuring that they have relevant experience in the type of work expected in the project. Induction training to be effectively delivered. Training in expected safe systems of work and to include permits to work, lockout and tagout. Checks to ensure that they are aware of their duties. Satisfy yourself that they and anyone they employ or engage are competent and adequately resourced. That they plan, manage and monitor their own work to make sure that workers under their control are safe from the start of their work. Ensure that any contractor who they appoint or engage to work on the project is informed of your requirements and that they are allowed time to plan and prepare before starting their work. That they provide workers under their control, whether employed or self-employed, with any necessary information, including about relevant aspects of other contractors' work and site induction which they need to work safely, to report problems or to respond appropriately in an emergency. Ensure that any design work they do complies with the requirements of your designers. That they cooperate with others and coordinate their own work with others working on the project. On arrival at the site, subcontractors should ensure that share information with the contractor on the particular project risks. They report to the site office on arrival on site and report to the site manager. They abide by any site rules, particularly in respect of personal protective equipment. The performance of their work does not place others at risk. They are familiar with the first aid and accident reporting arrangements of the principal contractor. They are familiar with all emergency procedures on the site. Any materials brought onto the site are safely handled, stored and disposed of in compliance, where appropriate, with the current control of substances hazardous to health regulations. They adopt adequate fire precaution and prevention measures when using equipment which could cause fires. They minimize noise and vibration produced by their equipment and activities. Any ladders, scaffolds and other means of access are erected in conformance with good working practice and the work at height regulations. Any welding or burning equipment brought onto the site is in safe operating condition and used safely with a suitable fire extinguisher to hand. Any lifting equipment brought onto the site complies with the current lifting operation and lifting equipment regulations. All electrical equipment complies with the current electricity at work regulations. Connections to the electricity supply is from a point specified by the principal contractor and is by proper cables and connectors. For outside construction work, only 110V equipment should be used. Any restricted access to areas on the site is observed. Welfare facilities provided on site are treated with respect. Any vehicles brought onto the site observe any speed, condition or parking restriction. Checking on a contractor's competence. Outline the checks that could be made in assessing the health and safety competence of a contractor. Review of their health and safety policy document. Is it suitable and sufficient? What is their training program? What is the standard of risk assessments? How adequate are their method statements? How complete are their safe systems of work? What level of supervision will they be implementing? What are their accident-incident statistics? Do they have records of any enforcement action? Have they done this type of work in the past? Have they adequate insurance coverage? What competence proof do they have for their key workers, for example plant operators, electricians, etc.? Do they have reliable references? Do you need to visit an existing project to see firsthand how they perform on site? Are they members of a recognized trade association? Competence of contractor assessing. List the factors that could be considered when assessing the health and safety competence of a contractor. This is a list question, thus a simple listing would suffice, but the following points need to be considered for inclusion. Previous experience in the type of work expected to be undertaken. Reputation within the industry with clients. Quality and content of health and safety policy. Availability of risk assessments. Level of training and qualifications of staff including health and safety staff. Accident enforcement statistics. Membership of official bodies. Equipment maintenance records. Detailed proposals of work to be undertaken. Recommendations from past clients. Ability to provide safe systems of work for the job, that is resources. Overall health and safety culture. Their arrangements to fulfill their duties with respect of the health and safety plan. A site visit to an existing project. Competence of contractor. Identify the factors that could be considered when assessing the health and safety competence of a contractor. In deciding which contractor should be chosen for a task, the following should be considered. Do they have an adequate health and safety policy? Can they demonstrate that the person responsible for the work is competent? Can they demonstrate that competent safety advice will be available? Do they monitor the level of accidents at their work site? Do they have a system to assess the hazards of a job and implement appropriate control measures? Will they produce a method statement, which sets out how they will deal with all significant risks? Do they have guidance on health and safety arrangements and procedures to be followed? Do they have effective monitoring arrangements? Do they use trained and skilled staff who are qualified where appropriate? Judgment will be required, as many construction workers have had little or no training except training on the job. Can the company demonstrate that the employees or other workers used for the job have had the appropriate training and are properly experienced and, where appropriate, qualified? Can they produce good references indicating satisfactory performance?